Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The NFL offseason just exploded with a massive bomb that nobody saw coming, and Minnesota Vikings fans are scrambling to figure out what it all means for their purple and gold. Early this morning, the football world woke up to breaking news that sent shockwaves through every front office in the league. Jalen Waddle, the explosive star wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, was shipped off to the Denver Broncos in exchange for a first-round pick, a third-rounder, and a fourth-round selection. This wasn't just another routine trade. This was a seismic shift that has the entire league buzzing, and more importantly, it has Vikings fans asking some very serious questions about their own roster. Here's the thing about blockbuster trades like this one. They don't just affect the two teams involved. When a franchise like Miami starts making moves that scream fire sale, every other general manager in the league starts circling like sharks, smelling blood in the water. And for the Vikings, there are two massive storylines emerging from this Waddle deal that could completely reshape their offense heading into next season. First, with Miami clearly in full teardown mode, could Minnesota swoop in and steal one of the most electrifying running backs in football, Devin Achane? Vikings fans have been practically begging for a legitimate superstar at the running back position for years now. Head coach Kevin O'Connell has been running this offense for 4 seasons, and despite having Justin Jefferson and a solid receiving core, the ground game has been painfully average at best. The question on everyone's mind is simple. Could bringing in a game-breaking talent like Achane finally unlock the rushing attack that's been missing in Minneapolis? But that's not all. The second major question stemming from this Waddle trade is what it means for Jordan Addison's trade value. If a receiver like Waddle can fetch a first-round pick and change in today's market, what could the Vikings get for their talented but troubled wide receiver? Addison has shown flashes of brilliance on the field, but his off-field issues have raised more red flags than a communist parade. With this new market value established by the Waddle deal, Minnesota's front office has to be seriously considering whether now is the time to cash in on Addison while his value is still high. Let's dive deep into both of these scenarios because they could literally determine whether the Vikings are Super Bowl contenders or stuck in mediocrity for another season. Devin Achane is not just another running back. This guy is a legitimate home run hitter, the kind of player who can take a simple handoff and turn it into 6 points before the defense even knows what hit them. Last season, Achane carried the ball 238 times for just over 1,300 yards, averaging an absolutely insane 5.7 yards per carry. To put that in perspective, that's elite territory. That's the kind of efficiency that makes offensive coordinators drool and defensive coordinators lose sleep. But here's the kicker. That performance wasn't a fluke or a one-year wonder. Go back to his rookie season and you'll find Achane averaging a mind-blowing 7.8 yards per carry. The guy has consistently been one of the most efficient backs in the entire National Football League since the moment he stepped on an NFL field. He's always flirting with the 1,000-yard mark, and the Dolphins have clearly valued him as a cornerstone piece of their offense. Which brings us to the harsh reality Vikings fans need to hear. Miami isn't going to give this guy away for peanuts. If you think the Dolphins are going to take some late-round picks and a bag of footballs for Devin Achane, you're living in fantasy land. This is a player who has proven he can be a focal point of an NFL offense, and Miami's front office knows exactly what they have. They're going to demand premium compensation, and that almost certainly means a first-round pick is going to be the starting point in any serious negotiations. Now, the Vikings hold the 18th overall pick in this year's draft, and here's where things get really interesting. Would Minnesota be willing to part with that selection to bring in Achane? On paper, it sounds amazing. Imagine an offense with Kyler Murray under center, Justin Jefferson on the outside, Jordan Addison running routes, TJ Hawkinson catching passes over the middle, and Devin Achane exploding out of the backfield. That's the kind of skill position group that keeps defensive coordinators awake at night scribbling game plans they know won't work. The read option possibilities alone would be absolutely deadly. Murray's mobility combined with a chain's explosive speed would create absolute nightmares for opposing defenses. You'd have one of the fastest quarterbacks in the league handing off to one of the fastest running backs in the league, and good luck stopping that if you're a linebacker trying to read which way the play is going. It would be offensive fireworks every single Sunday. But here's the problem, and it's a big one. Giving up the 18th overall pick for a running back, no matter how talented, is a massive commitment of resources for a position that frankly doesn't carry the same value it once did in the modern NFL. The league has evolved. Running backs, even great ones, just don't impact games the way elite edge rushers, cornerbacks, or offensive linemen do, and the Vikings still have legitimate needs in other areas. Minnesota's secondary could use another safety to shore up the back end. They could definitely use another cornerback to play alongside Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers. The defense has been good under Brian Flores, but it could be great with one more difference maker in the secondary. Is Devin Achane, as talented as he is, worth sacrificing the opportunity to address those needs? That's the million-dollar question Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and the Vikings Brain Trust have to answer. Now, if the Vikings were picking 26th, 27th, or 28th, this conversation might be different. A late first-rounder for a proven commodity like Achane starts to make more sense. But at 18, you're still in the range where impact players at premium positions are available. You could be looking at a future all-pro defensive back or a dominant pass rusher. Giving that up for a running back, even one as electric as Achane, is a tough pill to swallow. Let's explore some potential trade scenarios, because Vikings fans are already firing up their trade machines and arguing about this in every corner of the internet. Trade scenario number 1 is the straight swap. Devin Achane for pick number 18. If Minnesota sent this offer to Miami right now, the Dolphins would probably jump on it immediately. Think about it from their perspective. They just got pick 11 from the Broncos for Waddle, so if they could add pick 18 for Achane, they'd suddenly have 3 picks in the first round, including pick 30 from the Broncos deal. That's a massive haul of draft capital that would allow Miami to completely rebuild their roster in one offseason. From their perspective, this is a slam dunk. But from Minnesota's perspective, this is where things get dicey. Is Achane worth that 18th pick when you could draft a blue-chip prospect at a more valuable position? Most analysts would probably say no, and frankly, it's hard to argue with that logic. Trade scenario number 2 gets creative, a straight player swap involving Jonathan Greenard for Devin Achane. Now, this is where things get spicy. Greenard was one of the Vikings' big free agent signings, and he's been solid on the edge. His trade value is probably around a late first-round pick, which puts him in a similar range as Achane in terms of market value. The question is whether Miami would have any interest in this deal. Probably not, if we're being honest. The Dolphins are clearly tearing things down and rebuilding through the draft. They want picks, not players. But if Miami somehow offered this trade to Minnesota, you'd have to seriously consider it as a Vikings fan. You'd be losing an edge rusher, but you'd still have Dallas Turner, who needs more reps anyway. You'd still have Brian Flores coaching the defense, and he's shown he can get the most out of whatever pieces he has. And offensively, you'd be adding a legitimate game breaker. It's an intriguing thought experiment, even if it's probably not realistic. Trade scenario number 3 is the most balanced. A second-round pick and a fifth-round pick for Devin Achane. This would be pick 49 and pick 196 from Minnesota's draft capital. This feels more fair from the Vikings' perspective, but Miami probably says no to this deal in a heartbeat. Why? Because if the Dolphins are patient, there's probably a team out there willing to give up a first-rounder for Achane. Look at a team like the Chicago Bears, who are desperate for offensive weapons around their young quarterback. Would they give up a late first for a proven talent like Achane? Absolutely they would. So Miami has no incentive to take less when they can probably get more by waiting for the right offer. The harsh reality is that Achane is a hell of a player. He's got home run speed that can't be taught. He's the kind of back who can take a 5-yard run and turn it into a 75-yard touchdown because he's just faster than everyone else on the field. That ability to flip a game with one big play is invaluable, and it's why his price tag is going to be so high. He'd also be a weapon in the passing game, giving the Vikings another dimension in the receiving attack that they don't currently have from the running back position. But when you step back and look at the big picture, the juice might not be worth the squeeze from Minnesota. The Vikings could always draft a running back in the 3rd or 4th round and pair that rookie with Jordan Mason, who they signed this offseason. You could get solid production from that combination without sacrificing premium draft capital. And here's the elephant in the room that Vikings fans need to acknowledge. Kevin O'Connell has shown over 4 seasons that he's not going to lean heavily on the run game no matter who's carrying the football. If you bring in Devin Achane, you absolutely have to commit to running the ball. You have to make him a focal point of the offense. But O'Connell's track record suggests that's just not going to happen. He's a pass-first coach, and that's not changing anytime soon. So why invest major resources in a running back if you're not going to use him the way he needs to be used to maximize his value? The smart play for Minnesota is probably to pass on Achane unless Miami drastically lowers their asking price, which seems unlikely. Save that draft capital for positions of greater need, find a running back on day 2 or 3 of the draft, and trust that your offensive scheme and talent at the skill positions will be enough to compete. Now let's shift gears and talk about Jordan Addison, because this is where things get really controversial in Vikings Nation. The Waddle trade has established a market value for talented young wide receivers, and Addison absolutely falls into that category. The question is whether the Vikings should cash in while his value is high, or whether they should stick with him and hope he can stay out of trouble long enough to become the #1 receiver he has the talent to be. Let's be very clear about something. Jordan Addison is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the entire league. If you put him in a true WR1 role on a team like the Buffalo Bills or Kansas City Chiefs, he would absolutely cook. We're talking 1,300 to 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns. The guy is an elite route runner with elite hands, and when he's locked in, he's virtually uncoverable. Yes, the drops were an issue this past season, but let's be honest, a lot of that had to do with the quarterback situation and not Addison's actual ability. But here's the problem, and it's a massive one that can't be ignored. Addison's off-field issues are a legitimate concern, and they're not going away. This isn't a one-time mistake that he learned from. This is a pattern of behavior that has persisted throughout his entire NFL career. Let's run through the lowlights because they paint a troubling picture. During his rookie summer, Addison was ticketed for going 140 miles per hour. That's not just speeding. That's reckless endangerment. That's the kind of decision that gets people killed. Then in 2024, he was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence in Los Angeles. Strike 2. Then, during the 2025 season, he was suspended for the first quarter of a game against Cleveland for missing a team walkthrough. That shows a lack of professionalism and commitment that coaches absolutely hate. And then, as if he hadn't learned anything, he was arrested again this past offseason in January at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. 4 separate incidents in a very short NFL career. This isn't bad luck. This isn't the media blowing things out of proportion. This is a pattern of poor decision-making that has to concern anyone in Minnesota's front office with half a brain. Sure, Addison is great 6 days out of the week, but it's that 7th day where he keeps finding himself in situations that could derail his career and hurt the team. Now, here's where things get interesting from a trade value perspective. Jalen Waddle, who just got traded to Denver, has more trade value than Addison, but only slightly. Addison is under contract for the next 2 seasons for a total of $21 million when the Vikings pick up his 5th-year option. Waddle is making between $25 and $27 million over the next couple of seasons. The contracts are comparable, and the talent level is in the same ballpark. Waddle fetched a 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th from Denver. What could Addison bring back? Both Addison and Waddle fall into this category of elite wide receiver 2s who could potentially be wide receiver 1s on the right team. They're in the same conversation as guys like T. Higgins and Devonta Smith, really good players who might be 1 tier below the true superstars like Justin Jefferson, but who would be the best receiver on 20 other NFL teams. If the Vikings are seeing what Denver gave up for Waddle, They have to be thinking they could get a second-round pick for Addison without breaking a sweat. Maybe they could even get a first-round pick from a contender who needs that final piece to push them over the top. Imagine if the Seattle Seahawks called up and offered pick 32 for Addison. Seattle's trying to maximize their window with their current core. Cooper Kupp is getting older, and they need a dynamic receiver to pair with JSN. Would they do it? Absolutely. Would the Vikings accept? They should. Or what about the New England Patriots? If their pursuit of A.J. Brown falls through and they strike out on landing a true number one receiver, maybe they shift their attention to Addison and offer pick 31. That's a realistic scenario, and if it happens, Minnesota should sprint to the podium to accept that trade before New England changes their mind. Here's the cold, hard truth that Vikings fans need to hear, even if they don't want to. If this team were being run like a true dynasty organization, like the Chiefs or the Patriots during their championship runs, they would absolutely trade Jordan Addison this offseason. Both Kansas City and New England built their dynasties on a simple principle. Move off players 1 or 2 years earlier than you should, not 1 or 2 years later. They valued draft capital over loyalty to players they drafted, and they were ruthless about getting maximum value before a player's trade stock diminished. The Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill when he was still one of the best receivers in football. They got massive value in return, and they won another Super Bowl without him. They just traded Trent McDuffie this past offseason for similar reasons. The Patriots under Bill Belichick were famous for moving on from players, while other teams still wanted them, rather than holding on too long and getting nothing when they declined. If Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Brett Veach were running the Vikings right now, Jordan Addison would absolutely be on the trade block. If Belichick was still calling the shots for a contender, Addison would be getting shopped. The logic is simple. Addison is talented, but he comes with baggage. His off-field issues make him a risk. You have Justin Jefferson locked up as your true number one receiver. You could trade Addison now, while his value is relatively high, get premium draft capital in return, and use that to address other needs on the roster. It's the smart, calculated move that championship organizations make. But will the Vikings actually do it? That's the million-dollar question. If a team offers a first-round pick for Jordan Addison, Minnesota should accept it immediately. No hesitation. You take that deal and run before the other team sobers up and realizes what they just offered. A first-round pick for a talented but troubled receiver who's not even your best player at his position? That's a no-brainer. Now, if the offer is a second-round pick, things get more complicated. That would require some serious soul-searching in the Vikings' war room. On one hand, Addison is incredibly talented and could be a key piece of the offense for years. On the other hand, his off-field issues aren't going away, and a second-round pick is still valuable draft capital that could be used to address major needs elsewhere on the roster. It's not an easy call, but it's one that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell might have to make this offseason. The prediction here is that Addison probably doesn't get traded when all is said and done. Despite the concerns, despite the off-field issues, despite the market value that's been established, the Vikings will likely decide to hold on to him and hope that he can finally get his act together. But make no mistake, after seeing what Waddle just brought back, Minnesota's front office has to at least be exploring what they could get in return. They'd be negligent not to field offers and see what's out there. One thing that's made this whole Addison saga somewhat entertaining, if we're being honest, is watching him go back and forth with Patriots fans on social media this offseason. That's been one of the more fun and enjoyable parts of the Addison tenure in Minnesota. The guy's got personality, and he's not afraid to mix it up online. But personality doesn't matter if you keep finding yourself in legal trouble and missing team obligations. The bottom line is this: the Jalen Waddle trade has created a ripple effect across the entire NFL, and the Vikings are right in the middle of it. Whether it's pursuing Devin Achane to finally fix their running game or shopping Jordan Addison to maximize his trade value before his off-field issues tank it completely, Minnesota has some major decisions to make this offseason. The Devin Achane situation is tempting, but probably too expensive for what the Vikings need. The Jordan Addison situation is complicated, but might be an opportunity to get serious value while the getting is good. Either way, Vikings fans better buckle up because this offseason is about to get very interesting very quickly. The NFL doesn't sleep, and neither do the front offices trying to build championship rosters. Miami's fire sale is just getting started, and Minnesota has to decide whether they want to be buyers, sellers, or just sit back and watch the chaos unfold. With a talented roster that's right on the cusp of contention, every decision matters. Get it right, and the Vikings could be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in a year or two. Get it wrong, and they're stuck in mediocrity watching other teams celebrate championships. The clock is ticking, the phones are ringing, and somewhere in Minnesota, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is weighing options that could define this franchise for the next decade. Will he pull the trigger on a blockbuster move, or will he stay patient and trust the process? We're about to find out, and Vikings fans are going to be glued to their phones waiting for the next breaking news alert. So what do you think? Should the Vikings go all in on Devin Achane and give up that first-round pick to finally get a superstar running back? Or should they shop Jordan Addison while his value is high and cash in before his off-field issues become an even bigger problem? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are you team trade or team pass? Let's get the debate going because Vikings Nation needs to sound off on this one. And listen, if you enjoyed this deep dive into what the Waddle trade means for Minnesota, make sure you smash that like button, drop a comment with your hottest take, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another update. We're bringing you the latest news, the hottest takes, and the analysis you need to stay ahead of the game. This is going to be an absolutely wild offseason, and you don't want to miss a single second of it. Until next time, SKOL Vikings, and let's see if Minnesota's front office has the guts to make the moves that could finally bring a championship to Minneapolis.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.